Hi guys, I'm Dr. Mara Padilla Evangelista Huber. I'm a board certified dermatologist, a dermatopathologist, and I have a master's in clinical trials. That means these are studies done on humans. Today, we're going to talk about a really important, relevant topic, COVID-19 vaccines. I've received a lot of questions from my followers, ranging from vaccine specific questions to side effects to vulnerable populations like breastfeeding or pregnant women, children, and the elderly, or those with comorbidities. To answer all of these questions, I invited my medical school classmate and infectious disease specialist, Dr. Ann Gabriel Chan. Like me, she graduated from the University of Santo Tomas Faculty of Medicine and Surgery. She proceeded to get her internal medicine residency at Chinese General Medical Center and then proceeded to get her infectious disease specialization from the University of the Philippines, Philippine General Hospital. Let's all warmly welcome Dr. Ann Gabriel Chan.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Mara, for having me.
It's our honor to have you. So we actually have four categories of questions sent in by different people, followers, friends, and family. We have vaccine specific questions, questions about special populations like alam mo naman, ang dami-daming tanong about pregnancy,
Yeah.
breastfeeding,
Mhm.
children, tsaka yung mga comorbidities. I'm sure ikaw, you get that question a lot also. And then we also have questions about transmission after the vaccination and of course, ang walang kamatayang side effects. For the first set of questions, we're looking at vaccine-specific questions. So first, what vaccines are currently available in the Philippines?
So right now, the only way we can get the vaccine here in the Philippines is through emergency use authorization or your EUA, and it has to be FDA approved here in the Philippines. No, and right now we do have Sinovac, which is an inactivated vaccine platform, no? And the other one would be AstraZeneca, which is a vector vaccine.
So right now, they're the only two vaccines available through the EUA, but through time, we will expect more vaccines to come in ba, do you think?
Yeah, hopefully. And hopefully mas mabilis yung pag-procure no ng government. And later on, I'm sure you've heard about Moderna no and Pfizer, which are mRNA vaccines. And the J&J, which is the also a vector born like Astra.
Sige, so you heard that, guys. We only have two vaccines right now available, but in the future, hopefully, more and more vaccines will come in. And like Dr. Ann said, faster na yung rollout in the future. Okay,
Yeah.
for the next question, is there a more preferred brand of vaccine, especially or specifically for Filipinos?
Oh, actually, yung best, medyo parang beauty queen na answer, no? I'm sure you've heard yung best and available vaccine yung better sa lahat, no?
Right.
Hindi naman siya race specific. Actually, in most of the studies, they tried to include all races dun sa population. And right now, once it's FDA and has passed the clinical trials already, we're assured that yung efficacy ng vaccines no would are good in terms of preventing the COVID-19 disease, which is the primary outcome, di ba? But we also want to look at preventing the severe COVID-19. No? So all of the vaccines that I mentioned, all has a prevention in terms of getting severe no COVID-19 because yung important kasi doon is hindi natin alam kung sino sa atin yung magiging
Right.
severe no. Sometimes I've seen patients who are young without comorbidities pero na in critical conditions because of COVID-19. So I think mas magandang tignan natin would be yung efficacy in terms of preventing severe COVID-19. So right now, the best vaccine would be yung available, no?
Okay.
Because every vaccine naman has proven to be effective in terms of preventing severe and contracting COVID-19.
When you will be vaccinated, the risk of you developing a severe illness to COVID is significantly reduced. I remember one really good metaphor is yung tigre, the tiger, ginawa mong pusa. So you may still get COVID, but if you get it, it's gonna manifest in a way that it's like a cold. And all the vaccines that Dr. Ann mentioned do that same thing.
Yes.
Therefore, if you're asking, di ba, what's the best vaccine? All of them really reach that specific endpoint. Basically, pare-pareho lang sila na kayang gawin yon. That's why Dr. Ann is saying the best vaccine is what you really have right now para hindi ka na talaga magkaroon ng risk na ma-ospital o mamatay sa COVID. That is her point,
Yeah,
guys. Go
that's a
ahead.
very good point, no? Kasi lagi kong naririnig yon na pag nagpabakuna ka, makakakuha ka pa rin ng COVID, no? Yes, meron talaga kasi wala namang made na 100% hindi na tayo magkakaroon. And I'm sure you've heard about variants, di ba? Pwedeng mag-mutate yung virus. So, we can still get COVID-19. But yung main purpose of getting the vaccine is to prevent yung severity or complications that COVID-19 will cause, no?
Remember, right now, studies are still early. You can't really say it stopped transmission just yet, but we know it will stop the disease from manifesting in a severe way. So yes, you may still transmit, but if we are almost all of us or all of us are vaccinated, then hindi na masyado nagmamatter yon kasi nga lahat tayo nabakunahan na.
What you are describing is the herd immunity, no?
Yeah.
So eventually, if we all got immunized, no, and has antibodies against COVID-19, even those yung mga patients that are not eligible to get the vaccine, magkakaroon tayo ng indirect protection for them, no? So very important to take note na lalo na kung may kasama kang kid sa bahay or elderly na severely immunocompromised na for some reason at this moment hindi pwedeng bakunahan. Pag nabakunahan ka, you also provide indirect protection to them, no, from the diseases.
That's super important. Ako, relate ako dyan because I have a toddler. So
Yeah.
that's really important to me. And please guys, listen to what Dr. Ann is saying. By being vaccinated, you are protecting the vulnerable, not
Mhm.
just yourself. So don't do it just for yourself. Do it for everyone else in your immediate household. And sabi nga nila, for the world. For the next question, if I get vaccinated, will I become positive on the testing for COVID?
Mm. I've got parang lots of questions then regarding that, no. So we have to remember that none of the available vaccines, no, even if yung mga hindi pa dumadating dito and available sa Philippines, are none of them are live vaccines and they can make you test positive, no. So if you would remember, most of the vaccine platform that was used is parang getting a part of the virus, no, and inoculating it to the body to teach the body or train the body to produce antibodies against COVID-19, no. So hindi yun yung dinedetect ng mga antigen and PCR swab, but of course yung goal kasi ng vaccination eventually would be for us to mount an immune response, meaning an antibody response against COVID-19. So of course pagka antibody test yung
Right.
kinuha natin, then possibly magkaka-positive antibodies tayo. But for the antigen and PCR swab, impossible kasi they're not live vaccines.
Right. Okay, guys. So the answer is it depends also on the test. So because some tests, they test for the actual presence of the virus, aka the antigen. Magne-negative ka doon kasi nga you got the antibodies without exposure to the virus. Yan ang ibig sabihin ng vaccination. Nagka-antibodies ka pero hindi ka nagkasakit. yun,
Yeah.
the antigen, right, Dr. Ann? Yun yung itinetest na magne-negative ka. But because there are tests that look for antibodies, yung mismong immune response mo to the virus, which can be dahil actually nagka-COVID ka talaga, or na-injectionan ka and you created antibodies against COVID, pwede ka doon mag-positive. So huwag kami mag-freak out bigla, ha? Pag
Yeah.
nag-positive ka, again, depende sa test. So thank you, Dr. Ann, for answering that question. Okay, next. Can a person be vaccinated using two different vaccine brands, right? Like maybe nag-Sinovac and then naggusto na after the next one, it's Astra. So is that even possible? Is that a good idea?
Actually, ang daming questions about it, no? Kasi some would really say, gusto ko ng Pfizer, pero
Right,
Sinovac yung available ngayon. So I'll
right.
get Sinovac now, and then yung second dose, I'll get Pfizer, no?
Yes.
So that's interchangeability of the vaccine. If you heard, no, yung a while ago, iba-iba yung vaccine platforms, no? Iba yung mechanism of actions nila. So right now there's no evidence na if you interchangeably use yung vaccines, no, yung iba-ibang brands would cause parang benefit, no? More of
Right.
hindi pa nga tayo sure, baka maka-harm pa dahil iba yung vaccine platform, no? So what the WHO and even the CDC advises is to get the same brand.
Yeah.
And
But
that's how the government allots eh. No?
right.
So for
Yeah.
example, sabihin nila there's 600,000 na vaccines dumating right now. So ang counting nila doon is 300,000 because automatically
Right.
yung
Right.
second
Two
dose is
doses.
allotted for you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ann. Next question. What is the probability that a vaccinated person could get COVID? Good question.
Hmm. Um Actually, yung pag-test kasi we don't use parang screening na to swab them or antibody test them before getting the vaccine, no? So some, kasi I'm sure there's a recent news, no, na parang may na vaccine and then namatay dito sa Philippines, no, namatay because nagka-COVID ganun. When in fact nung in-investigate nila is prior to the first dose, meron siyang recent exposure. So he can be at that time asymptomatic and carrying the virus na, no. So nung na-inject, of course hindi naman pag na-inject we would mount agad-agad yung antibodies, 'di ba? It would really take time na mag-build tayo ng antibodies against COVID-19. So we can still get COVID-19 but somehow yung benefit kasi is hindi siya magiging severe, no? Yun yung goal natin. So I think the main message here would be hindi tayo pwede maging kampante, no? Na we still have to practice the minimum public health standards by still using the mask, face shield, no? And consider yung ventilation as well as the physical distancing even if ma-vaccinate tayo kasi we can still get COVID-19.
Right. Yeah. I remember having this conversation also with my husband, with Nick. He was trying to understand the percentages that are being published based on, the vaccine performance. So, guys, I just want you to understand when you look at the vaccine's efficacy, like how it works, you usually look at three things. First, will you get the infection and how will it manifest? So hindi lang ibig sabihin na nakuha mo yung virus. Ang mas importanteng tanong actually is gaano katindi yung manifestation ng virus sa'yo, right, Dr. Ann? So you
Yeah,
can
oo.
have like a mild infection, you can have a severe infection, and the third question is, so again, first question, makakakuha ba ako ng infection at all? And kung magkakaroon ako ng infection, ito bang infection na ito ay magiging less severe than usual or severe na severe? And mapapasa ko ba yung virus to another person? So these are questions na parang endpoint ng isang trial studying a vaccine. So, yung sinasabi namin kanina ni Dr. Ann, the primary endpoint, kumbaga, yung percentage na nakikita nyo, the more important percentage is ilang percent ng mga tao ang hindi nakakakuha ng severe disease. Yun
Yeah.
ang mas important, right, Dr. Ann?
So, ang goal natin is, yes, okay naman, hindi ko naman sinasabi okay magkaroon ng COVID, yeah. Pero, yung sure naman ako na hindi ako magiging severe, di ba? Dahil vaccinated ako.
So, ibig sabihin nun, pag nagkasakit ka, madalas parang sipo na lang siya. Should those who already have had COVID get vaccinated?
Yes, no. Actually, isa sila sa mga priority groups, no. Because knowing the parang behavior ng SARS-CoV which causes COVID-19, no, yung virus itself, we now know that reinfection is possible, no. So lalo na pagka sa second time around, limited pa yung studies on magiging severe ka ba
Right.
or mild pa rin, no? So, hindi natin alam right now, no? So, best to get your vaccines pa rin after an infection, no? So,
Okay.
usually, if it's mild asymptomatic, kahit 14 days after, no, yung recovery, pag natapos mo yung isolation mo, you can get the vaccine. But for severely ill patients na naging na-intubate and mga nag transfuse na, I'm sure you've heard about
Right.
yung convalescent plasma, yung mga antibodies um, from a recovered patient. We usually recommend 90 days or 3
90 days.
months
Okay.
after the infection.
That's really helpful. Okay, guys. So remember, uh, sometimes kasi people think, parang chicken pox, right? Nagkaroon na ako ng chicken pox, so protected na ako. So that's not the way it works, right? Ganun sila madalas. O di ba dapat ganun? Pag nagkasakit ka, hindi na mauulit. COVID is not like that. So please, guys, if you've had COVID before, the guidelines at Dr. Ann is super important. Like, if it's an asymptomatic infection versus having severe disease, merong siyang duration before you get to vaccination. Please remember that. Okay. How effective are the vaccines against newer variants?
Ah, um, yung mga available data ngayon are preliminary data, no? And for Pfizer, Moderna, and Astra, they have a preliminary data that they're working on UK and African variants, and yung preliminary would show effective sila for those kinds of variants. For Sinovac, they haven't released any data, but theoretically, if you're talking, kasi Sinovac works in a different way. Iba yung vaccine platform niya. So it works by inactivated or parang weakened, no? But the whole virus would be administered through the vaccine. Pero weakened na to, it cannot cause the disease, no? Or
Right.
even make you positive sa RT-PCR. But theoretically, if you're giving a whole inactivated virus, mas resistant siya to variants.
Okay. But does
So
that mean that it's automatically better to go with Sinovac using that premise? Or hindi masyadong nagmamatter kasi at some point, all of them will still prevent severe disease regardless of the variant? Ganun ba?
regardless of variant, yeah. Actually, right now, yung data rin on variants kasi is so far they're more parang infectious or contagious, but parang same yung course ng disease nila, no? So actually ang mas magandang point kasi diyan is as long as you practice yung mga public health standards like um wearing a mask or face shield, physical distancing, and yung ventilation and washing your hands, no, you prevent yung disease na itself eh. Kahit na yung
Right.
mga variants, mapiprevent mo pa rin.
Right.
Kahit na ano pang mutation yan,
Right.
mapiprevent mo if you practice the basic things, no? And what more pa kung na-vaccinate ka. So, parang mas mataas yung chances of not getting COVID-19 and parang period, hindi, regardless kung anong variant sila or type ng virus.
Right. Okay. So next category, ito marami talaga nagtatanong dito, vulnerable populations. Children can receive the vaccine. True or false?
So right now, the current local guidelines would be 16 years old and above lang yung eligible. No? Why? Because there's no data yet, no, for children, no, na wala. If you would review yung mga published data that are available, most of them would include yung population 16 and above. So right now, yun lang yung
Okay. So
recommendation.
guys, again, remember, like I mentioned a while ago, a vaccine's efficacy will be tested muna in a trial, and there have not been any published trials on kids. Kaya hindi pa natin matatranslate yung ating knowledge from a trial to reality. Kaya hindi pa natin magagawa. Although I've read Moderna is just starting to test
Yeah.
on
So,
kids.
but important yung herd immunity, di ba? That's
Yes.
the best we can do. Kaya kailangan ma-vaccinate ma-achieve natin yung number ng population natin to get to herd immunity para ma-protect natin yung kids
Ng mga
natin.
vulnerable. Exactly.
Okay.
Next vulnerable population, pregnant women. Can pregnant women have COVID-19 vaccines?
So the recommendation is to parang consult your OB. No? Because you have to consider yung transmissibility, yung risk of having or being exposed to COVID-19, and the potential risk to the fetus. No? So for example, you're a healthcare worker, no, and you're pregnant and you're frequently exposed to COVID-19, then you might need to want to consider getting the vaccine. No, but in the guidelines ng OB, you have to wait until the second trimester and above.
Right. Okay.
Pero in some naman, they would recommend, for example, hindi naman lagi ka namang nasa bahay or wala ring lumalabas sa bahay or na-expose, you can consider getting it postpartum.
Okay. So the answer is, it's not an absolute contraindication. Hindi ibig sabihin na pagbuntis ka, then X na. It's more of talk to your OB, and then it depends on your exposure status and your risk factors. So syempre, sabi nga ni Dr. Ann, kung mas exposed ka, baka mas kailangan mo. But you can also wait after pregnancy kung hindi masyadong mataas. So again, it depends, but it's not a contraindication. Next, vulnerable population, breastfeeding moms like me.
So again, no, yung breastfeeding kasi is actually recommended, and theoretically, 'di ba? We can pass on the antibodies to our babies. No, it's one of the benefit. Kaya hindi naman kasi live yung mga vaccines, no? And generally safe sila. So the WHO would recommend not to discontinue breastfeeding if you get vaccinated. Kasi nga, theoretically, although limited yung data, mapapass on mo yung antibodies mo to your baby.
Okay. So basically, it's not a contraindication and we encourage it. Next, vulnerable population. The elderly, mga matatanda. Is there an age cutoff na, okay, pag ganitong age, wag na, or itong age, itong vaccine na lang?
Actually, yung dun sa most of the evidence that are available, walang limit, no, in terms of kung sino yung mga hanggang anong age pwede. And actually, yung mga elderly talaga, if you would notice, yung priority natin, di ba?
Right.
One of the priority on the list. Because they are the most population na pwedeng mag-develop ng severe COVID-19. No? So most of the vaccines are given to can be given to elderly, except yung Sinovac, because yung studies niya was done in 16 to 59-year-old na population. But syempre, vaccine kasi is a choice. So some patients would really want Sinovac. So yung FDA ngayon here locally, no, yung sa government natin has provided a waiver that they would sell.
Okay.
So, I understand na walang masyadong evidence because the study was done only in this kind of population. Right. And you still want Sinovac, so okay, go. Sign ka lang, tas pwede pa rin. But most of the yung mga ibang vaccines, sa elderly talaga rin nila pinocus yung mga studies nila.
That's really interesting. So, in the elderly sa Philippines, mas madalas Astra ang first line, tama ba?
Yeah, Astra yung recommended.
Unless you refuse and then you shift to that's so interesting. The last vulnerable population naman are the ones with medical conditions, hypertension, diabetes, renal stones, because G6PD, etc., so many medical conditions were sent to me to be asked of you, Dr. Ann, kung safe.
Comorbidities kasi if you would notice, 'di ba, tinatry natin i-restratify, ikaw naging symptomatic ka, meron ka bang comorbidities, no? So bakit ganun yung tanong? Because sila din yung population na nakita na may potential maging severe and critical, no? So actually, sila din yung second na population na magbe-benefit dun sa vaccine, no? So as long as maintained yung hypertension, diabetes, walang problem, hindi nagfe-flare up yung mga asthma ganyan. Pwede sila ma-vaccinate, no? Ang hindi lang pwede would be yung mga current na cancer patient that are on chemotherapy, no? Not exactly hindi na talaga pwede, but we have to time din yung vaccination, no? So for those who are undergoing chemotherapy or immunosuppressant therapy, 2 weeks din yung interval, no? So pwedeng vaccinate muna, tapos after 2 weeks mag-chemo, or kung nauna na yung chemo, pwedeng after 2 weeks magba-vaccinate. So, if you would notice, hindi rin siya absolute contraindication. No? So, yung absolute contraindication lang would be a previous allergy or severe reaction to the first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. No? So, hindi natin malalaman yan until ma-vaccinate tayo. And number 2 would be if you have had yung, for example, na colonoscopy ka, and then you were given a laxative or labatiba, no? Tapos nagkaroon ka ng allergic reaction, severe allergic reaction, and those who had grafts, for example, angioplasty, or any graft, no, sa vein, tapos nagka-allergy ka, then that's the only two contraindication na hindi ka pwedeng ma-vaccine. Otherwise, pwede. No? So, may allergies ako sa shrimp, may allergies ako sa paracetamol, pwede ba akong ma-vaccine? No? Pwede pa rin. Pero ina-assess kasi yan. Sa vaccination site, merong mga allergologists that would be present. No? And ina-assess nila yan, and they have parang restratification din kung gaano ka, kung anong level ka, kung mild, moderate, and severe. And they would tell you kung pwede kang ma-vaccinate or hindi. But usually, yes, pwede.
So I have so many followers asking me questions. Can they be vaccinated? And then they tell me yung mami nila may ganito, may ganyan. Ako may ganito, may ganyan. Who should they talk to even know if they are eligible for vaccination? So okay guys, what we're doing here is not specific medical advice. This is general advice. It's a case-to-case basis. Like paulit-ulit na sinasabi ni Dr. Ann, hindi kasi siya pare-pareho. So ang tanong ng marami, I assume, is kanino kami magtatanong? Pupunta na lang ba kami sa site? Tapos aantayin na lang namin i-assess kami? Of course, sa ngayon, hindi pa open sa general population, but it's good to start asking questions. Sino ang dapat nila kausapin, Dr. Ann? Should they talk to an infectious disease specialist? Is any doctor okay? Kasi sometimes, kahit magbabasa ka ng articles or makikinig sa mga magagandang katulad mo, hindi pa rin kasi siya parang nanunuot yung knowledge. Kailangan mo kumausap, di ba, ng tao. So, who should they talk to, you think? May suggestion ka ba?
Very good question yan. So, for example, you're hypertensive, no? Better to discuss this with your cardiologist or any internist na nag-aalaga talaga dun
yung
sa mga...
kilala ka.
Oo. Kasi ang hirap na mag-a-advise tayo, like tayong dalawa na mag-a-advise tayo, sige, go, mag-vaccinate kayo, di ba? Pero hindi natin alam talaga yung medical history. So, best to talk to your doctor, no, whether internist or, for example, cardiologist, if you're hypertensive, no? Doc, ano sa tingin mo, pwede ba yung vaccine, ganyan? And if na-assess naman niya that the comorbidity has been stable for some time, then sasabihin niya, sige, go ahead. No? So for diabetics, you have to talk yung endo or pwede rin yung internist mo, di ba? And for asthmatics, better clear it up with your pulmo din, no? Yung nag-aalaga din sa'yo. So basically, mas maganda kung magpapa-clear ka muna dun sa may kilala ng medical history.
Yes. So guys, what we are giving is general advice and not specific medical advice. If you have any comorbidities or even if ikaw mismo, you're healthy but meron kang pag-aatubili, kaya may mga doktor sa paligid na willing tumulong sa inyo. Okay?
Not
Next.
Dr.
Ah,
Google.
yes, exactly, Dr. Google. Hindi siya pumunta ng medical school, just ko si Dr. Google. Huwag tayo mag-Dr. Google, guys. Usong-uso ang telemedicine. Just a PSA, you don't have to go out. Doctors are keeping up with the times. We are all available online. Well, a lot of us are really. All you have to do is just, doon pwedeng gamitin si Google para maghanap ng doktor. Hindi para siya yung doktor. Okay, guys? You can use Google to look for a doctor who offers teleconsultation. Okay, now we're going to talk about transmission, but I think we've already discussed it a while ago. The question was, if I get vaccinated, is there a chance I can infect my baby?
Walang live vaccine. So, there's no potential na mag-shed ka ng virus during the vaccination period. It's not like, kasi the only live lang naman is MMR. No?
Right.
So, yun yung nag-isolate tayo. But for COVID-19 vaccines, lahat ng ginawang vaccines are all not live vaccines.
Right. But how about naman, Dr. Annie, for example, she was vaccinated and then nakakuha lang talaga siya ng COVID kasi di ba you can still get it. Can she still infect others?
Yes, kung nakakontract ka ng COVID, yes, oo. Kaya kailangan pa rin talagang naka-mask and
yes. Because vaccines, it's not the only answer. It's just one of the many things that we should do to stop the virus. Okay, guys? Hindi ibig sabihin na pag nabakunahan ka, free for all na, life is 100% back to normal until the rest of the world is doing the same precautions. Marami tayong na-vaccinate. Medyo, please, don't let your guard down. We're down to the last category, which is the most bongga of all the categories kasi ang dami talagang tanong. Okay, what are the common side effects to expect post-vaccination? Yan.
Yan yung mga major concern bakit merong vaccine hesitancy. Just to parang introduce the term reactogenicity to everybody, no? So yes, merong mga side effects, no? Even the clinical trials na published would say there are side effects, but remember that these are mild and transient, no? Sobrang liit ng chance na makakuha ka ng side effects, no? And yung side effects na yon are normal. Sinasabi nila lagi normal reaction because of the term reactogenicity, no? So it's the body's response, no, when of course you're given something parang an immunogen, 'di ba? So yung immune system natin would really recognize it early and magkakaroon talaga siya ng mga reaction telling the whole cells of the body na oops, may something, may parang foreign body doon that we have to fight off. So talagang may redness, minsan may sore arm ka, and in some patients pag severe, hindi man severe pero parang mas mabilis yung reaction ng antibodies nila, some would even have fatigue, no, yung headache and fever, yung mga systemic symptoms. But of course laging lang to transient, no, minsan 1 to 2 hours, no, sometimes one whole day, pero it goes away, no. In the vaccination site then you're provided kits, no, meron dong mga antihistamine, paracetamol, and they would tell you na ito yung expected side effect, and pag lumabas to, ito yung iti-take mo.
In relation to that, Dr. Ann, does it mean if walang side effect yung pasyente, walang silbi yung vaccine? Isa pa yan, di ba? Balikan, di mo alam. Hindi mo alam kung gusto ng side effect, ayaw ng side effect. Hindi mo na malaman kung saan lulugar.
Ano yan kung hindi ko naman yun na-feel? Parang, ano ba yun? Hindi tumalab, no? So, that's also a good question. Remember na iba-iba yung response ng body natin, di ba? And in some, pwedeng sluggish or mabagal yung reaction natin. In some naman, pwedeng mabilis agad yung reaction, no? And it doesn't matter because in the study as well, nakita nila na even if nag-reactogenicity ka or hindi ka nag-reactogenicity, yung efficacy ng vaccine is same. for both population. So, nothing to worry naman kung wala ka ding na-feel.
Super important yan, guys. You know, I know doctors na they're married and then yung lalaki talagang walang naramdaman. Tapos yung babae, 2 araw, she's vomiting, having diarrhea. Not to scare you guys, but this is the point. It can be different person to person because iba-iba tayo. So, number 1, pwedeng walang reaction. Number 2, pwedeng mild reaction, pain, soreness. And 3, pwede rin hindi masyadong mild, medyo on the moderate to severe side. It's all expected. Sometimes kasi people say, Dok, normal ba yun? Ayaw nila ng normal? Okay, it's expected. It's expected. And the reason is,
Tama.
diba? Expected. Sige, kasi hindi naman daw normal. Okay, expected. But the reason we call it normal is we know it will go away on its own. I've heard cases of some frontliners going into anaphylactic shock.
Actually, dun din sa mga published studies, 'di ba? There are parang very very few reports, parang 0.09% of the study population had anaphylaxis, no? So anaphylaxis, 'di ba, severe reaction, yun yung pwedeng mamaga yung labi, no? Bumagsak yung blood pressure, pagpapawisan ka or magkaroon ka ng pantal, no? In some patients, nahilo.
Hirap huminga, hirap
But
lumunok.
nahirapan huminga, tama, yung parang naninikip or sinasakal daw sila, no? But remember that itong mga itong mga reactions na to are immediate, 'di ba? Most of them are immediate. So yung usually nandun ka pa sa vaccination site. And doon sa vaccination site, merong mga monitoring areas doon that are well equipped, ha, na meron silang mga epinephrine and all to counter that side effect, no. So hindi ka naman pagkabakuna pwede ka nang umuwi agad, no. So i-observe ka nila
That's
for
the
that.
reason why. Yes, na inaantay. Yeah.
So i-address nila 'yun.
Kaya please don't be afraid, guys. I mean, it can happen. But it's quite rare. Iba-iba, di ba? Iba-iba kada vaccine, of course. But generally, it's really rare. Which brings me to the next question. Meron bang watch outs or preconditions na, mukhang mas malaki yung chance na magkaka-anaphylaxis ako dahil may ganito ako? Meron bang conditions na ganun, Dr. Ann? Like, ako, meron akong history na uminom ako ng gamot, tapos grabe talaga nangyari sa akin, hindi ako makahinga, hindi ako makalunok. Ibig sabihin ba nun, that's going to make me experience the same thing with COVID-19 vaccines?
So as mentioned earlier, 'di ba? May mga instances na may mga skin asthma yung patient, no, na allergic sa environmental pollens, in certain food, no, or yung mga injectable drugs or even oral drugs, no, yung mga paracetamol or amoxicillin, 'di ba? May mga patients na allergic doon. So ito yung mga patients na in the protocol, they are observed longer in the vaccination site. And yun nga, may mga kits na pinaprovide na if in case after pass na nung monitoring and umuwi ka tas dun mo na experience, magte-take ka nung mga medications dun sa kit. And lahat ng nararamdaman, kahit mild or severe, have to be reported. Meron yung reporting system, yung adverse events na reporting surveillance, no, by the government.
We can't really predict who's going to develop that, but we are prepared, right, Dr. Ann? We are prepared, right? Ganun na lang yung best. Kasi hindi mo masasabi hindi mo malaman. Merong patient, wala talaga silang history of allergies, biglang matindi yung reactions. So the best way to circumvent this is that the doctors are prepared. Kaya nga sabi ni Dr. Ann, inoobserbahan ka 15 minutes or even more if meron silang nakita sa history mo, and then they have the medications ready. And guys, pag naririnig niyo yung mga balita na may reaction to the vaccine, nakakatakot, that means the monitoring system is working, right, Dr. Ann? Gusto natin nalalaman yun. Hindi dapat tinatago sa atin yun because it makes the doctors more prepared. O dahil nalaman namin na nagka-anaphylaxis dati, o di mas prepared kami to handle the case. So don't be afraid of what you hear about the side effects. Kasi nga, one, not everyone experiences it. Two, we are prepared to manage it.
Hindi natin kasi matitest kung allergic ka ba sa PEG, di ba? Or polysorbate, yung mga ganyan. Wala kasing laboratory test to do that eh.
Yes.
Kaya wala, talagang by history, or yun nga, kung na-vaccinate ka at
Yes.
nag-severe reaction ka, that's the time na ma-defer yung second dose.
Is there a better option in terms of that brand of vaccine for those with a history of allergy and anaphylaxis? Mukhang wala, Dr. Ano, based on what you're saying.
Yes, mukhang wala talaga. Kasi yung reaction natin, yung reactogenicity, it does not depend on what brand you're giving, no? So whatever yung vaccine, even if hindi naman COVID-19 may reactogenicity,
Yes.
di ba? So may expected talaga na side effect. Yung parang good analogy that I've heard from a mentor, no, na it parang think that it's like parang yung Titanic, it's a sinking ship, no? Pag binigyan ka ba ng salbabida, iisipin mo pa ba kung China made ba to o US made, 'di ba? Hindi, 'di ba? You will grab it. So kung ano yung available, yun yung best vaccine.
Everyone is in it together. We are all in that sinking ship. Rich, poor, whatever race, age, we are all in that ship. Hindi tayo naglalamangan. This is why we want to encourage everyone to do the same thing. Kahit anong salbabida, gusto lang natin makasalba ng maraming tao. Okay, guys? Let's not discriminate. That's very important. We have to work together. Okay. Kakayanin ba namin ng adverse effects? Baka lalo kami magka-COVID. I'm thinking also in relation to that, my own question. If you are vaccinated, are you immunosuppressed? Kasi parang yun ang feeling kong isang iniisip nila eh. Pag in-injectionan ba ako, hihina ba yung immunity ko? So much so na magkakaroon tuloy ako ng sakit. And then, in relation to that question also, dapat bang nasa bahay muna ako after ako ma-vaccinate since na-immunosuppress ako? Or pwede na ba akong pumasok sa sunod na araw kasi okay lang naman? Talaga bang humihina ang resistensya pag binakunahan? Or wala namang, hindi naman ganun. It's not how it works. Kasi feeling ko yun yung iniisip nila eh. Pag in-inject ako, kaya ako nanghihina, kasi yung resistensya ko, humihina din. So baka lalo ako magkasakit. Yan. What do you think?
Actually, it boosts nga yung immune system, di ba? Kaya tayo nagpa-vaccinate. And hindi naman sa, if you come to think of it, kung ikaw nga yung nagkaroon ng reactogenicity, ibig sabihin ang fast ng response mo, di ba? Parang at the onset, tinuruan niya agad na ma-recognize and mag-umpisa mag-build ng antibody. So minsan, yun nga, doon din kasi sa clinical studies, minention nila na napansin nila yung mga reactogenicity sa younger age na group, no? Kasi mas mataas yung immune system natin. Mas nagre-react, mas swift yung response nila dun sa immunogen compared sa elderly, no? So yun nga, kaya tayo nag-vaccinate to boost yung immune system, not to parang suppress the immune system.
Right, exactly. How many days usually, Dr. Ann, ang ating immunity ulit before the vaccine? I mean, after the vaccine, how many days before the immunity kicks in?
Usually takes time, 'di ba? For us to build our own antibody response. So usually 2 weeks. 2 weeks after the second dose. So important din 'yon that we have to complete first and second dose kasi yung mga nakita nating evidence ng efficacy are based on completion ng dose, no? Hindi porket na-vaccinate na ako ng 1, meron na akong 94% protection kasi yun yung sabi sa Pfizer. No? So hindi ganoon. So kailangan complete natin yung recommended dose, no? So pag dalawa dapat.
Siguro some practical tips because there is a chance naman talaga na magka-side effects. It will be good na you also expect. Huwag naman sana mangyari. But for some people, if you can maybe arrange na may mag-aalaga na anak mo or maybe take a day off of work, kung possible lang naman, kumbaga make things ready kung sakasakali ikaw ay magkakaroon ng side effects. So pag nabakunahan ka, meron ka ng food, naka-arrange ka na ng may groceries, I think it helps to be prepared. And then another thing also, yung 2 weeks na sinasabi ni Dr. Ann after ka na-vaccinate, kung ikaw ay nasa bahay lang naman, you're sheltering in place, ituloy mo na, huwag ka na munang lumabas until the 2-week cutoff comes in, or just like Dr. Ann said, the simple wash your hands, keep your distance, all of these precautionary measures to supplement your vaccination. Okay, guys? So is it recommended to take an antihistamine 2 hours before vaccination to mitigate anaphylactic reactions?
we usually don't recommend, no, kasi it would mask yung
Right.
yung dapat na side effect, ay not side effect but the reactogenicity, no, mamamask niya kasi. So if ever na lang, ang sinasabi namin, if ever ma-develop mo, tsaka mo na lang siya
You
i-take.
treat. Yes.
Oo.
Oh, okay. Very good, then, guys. Ha, don't self-medicate. Please don't self-medicate. We are monitoring you for a reason, okay? Don't prevent, we treat pagdating sa ganyan. Ha? What are the worst possible side effects the vaccine could have? Talagang meron siyang specific time period after 2 years. So in short, long-term side effects. Meron ba tayong data about that, Dr. Ann?
So unfortunately, wala pang data or evidence for the newer versions or technology of the vaccine, such as yung mRNA and yung mga vector vaccines such as Astra, Pfizer, and Moderna. For Sinovac, syempre wala pa ring data for COVID-19 itself, but at least more or less inactivated kasi siya eh. Medyo old platform na siya. So, if you've had pneumonia vaccines before, which uses the same vaccine platform, more or less, nakita na natin na wala naman siyang long-term side effect. But not directly nga sa COVID-19. Wala pang data available.
Right. So, guys, another thing also, many side effects of vaccines are actually acute. Mabilis siyang mangyari. Sabi nga ni Dr. Ann, within the first 15 minutes, you will already know if you're reacting. And then kung meron ng mga side effects, it's usually maybe 1, 2 days, may iba few days longer, pero mabilis. What you need to remember also is most of the clinical trials actually already have 6 months worth of monitoring of the vaccinated individuals. And actually, it will continue for another 2 years pa, yung monitoring. So kaya rin maganda na marami na ba-vaccinate, padami ng padami yung data natin about safety. So, ang drugs, ganun din naman eh. Maraming drugs na ginagamit natin, but then you don't really know kung ano yung kanilang long-term effects. So don't let it deter you, yung lack of long-term safety data, because hindi lang vaccines ang may issue niyan. Many drugs also that go into the market, wala namang long-term, as in literally decades. Wala. Especially ngayon at time is, di ba? Time is of the essence. Nagmamadali tayo, guys. Di ba? So remember again, first, most of the side effects of the vaccines or the adverse effects, mabilis ang lumalabas, hindi masyado yung long term, and meron na naman tayong data, 6 months and plus and minus a few more months, and then we will keep continuing to monitor as the years go by. Right, Dr. Ann?
Very good point.
Yay! Okay, I think we actually finished all of the questions. Guys, ang haba nun ha. Thank you, Dr. Ann. Naku, thank you. We know that you are so busy. See, Dr. Ann, she's also a mom to a toddler. So not only is she a frontliner na nag-rounds every day, she's also a mom. Kaya, thank you very much for your time, for joining us today. We won't keep you too long. We know you still have to attend to your family and rest after a long day of being in the frontline. Thank you very much, guys. I hope you've learned, and I'm gonna give you the summary points of our discussion in a few seconds. The COVID-19 vaccines, regardless of the brand, are effective in preventing hospitalization, death, and moderate to severe infections from COVID-19. This is a public health win, guys. We don't know yet if the vaccines can fully prevent transmission, meaning even if you're vaccinated, you might still transmit the virus to someone else. Early data suggests that the vaccines might prevent asymptomatic transmission of the virus, but data is still limited. This is really why it's important that even if you're vaccinated, you still need to do protective measures so that you're not spreading the virus. The more people we vaccinate, the closer we get to herd immunity and hopefully back to normal life. So what are the simple reasons to be vaccinated? 1, you won't die of COVID-19. 2, you won't be hospitalized because of COVID-19. 3, you're more likely to get mild disease, potentially just comparable to the common cold. And number 4, you may also stop transmission of the virus. Number 5, you protect the vulnerable. people who can't be vaccinated yet, or those who are likely to have a more severe infection if they do get COVID 19. So, those are your 5 reasons to vaccinate. Vaccination remains a choice. We're just here to share with you the facts that we know, and we hope that this helps you make an informed decision going forward. Thank you for listening and have a great day.